Hello, everyone. I'm Marian Waldman with Teach My Kid to Read, and I'm really excited today to be able to introduce Lisa Flanigan, who is the Youth Services Librarian at the Watauga County Public Library, which is in the Appalachin System. And this library is located in Boone, North Carolina. And Lisa's going to tell you all about the wonderful things that her library does and what they're doing to help more families of early and striving readers. And so the first question I'm going to ask you, Lisa, is to just tell us about your library and community.
Okay, well, we are part of a 3-county system called the Appalachian Regional Library System, and our particular county, Watauga County, is a rural mountain county in the north part of the state of North Carolina. We've got a total of about 54,000 people who live in our county, and then about 20,000 live in the town of Boone. But then we also have Appalachian State University, which brings in another 21,000 people and changes the makeup of the people who frequent our library. So we have college students that come. We have very rural families that come, but we're also a tourist destination. So we have people who have second homes here. And then in addition to that, the university, and we also have a large ministry called Samaritan's Purse. They bring people in from internationally. So it's been interesting. Back before COVID, when we would have story times, I told my husband, I think I have counted at least 12 different languages that are second languages of the people who came to story times. And also people come to the university maybe for, a semester as an exchange program. And they bring their, if they're families, they bring their young children to the library, I think, to hear and experience the English language. So that's been fun. And I'm trying to think, does that kind of give you a rough idea of our particular community?
Yeah, and just because you said it's also a tourist destination and second homes, just tell us a little bit more about the area. We may want to visit.
Okay, well, it's interesting. My husband, he just retired, but he was a builder for many years, and he built second homes for people. And he said, it's interesting. These people could build a home anywhere in the world. Some of these people, owned yachts on the Mediterranean, but they chose to have a second home here in the mountains of North Carolina. And he said, that should tell you something about how beautiful the area is. It is, we get a lot of rain. And so it's just, when it's not raining, it's like this gorgeous, gorgeous place with lots of hiking, lots of outdoor activities to do, lots of mountain biking and regular road biking. It attracts a lot of people for a lot of different reasons.
It sounds lovely. Sign me up.
Okay.
So to get back to your library now and why we're here. So what are you doing to help more families of early and striving, we like to say striving readers, keep it positive?
Yeah, we've tried to be pretty creative. I will say, I was inspired by the San Francisco Public Library. They created a program for their patrons called FOG, which was Free Orton Gillingham, where they train volunteers and then have, hundreds of families sign up for one-on-one tutoring that takes place in the libraries. But of course, they have a lot of libraries where that can take place, and we're just one building and we have 3 study rooms. So that was not going to be a model that was going to work well for us to support reading of struggling readers here. I also really like I think it's Richland County Public Library in South Carolina. And I had hoped to get down and visit there to observe what they do, but then COVID hit and I wasn't about the time I learned about them and I never got to go down. But I think they actually meet with parents of struggling readers. And it's kind of like they mentor and tutor the parents how to teach their children. And I thought, okay, well, that's a model we might be able to work with. And then, but that being said, prior to all of me even knowing about those, we did kind of create a grant opportunity that we were able to participate in. We called it Alphabet Ready, and we took, we created story times around each letter of the alphabet, and we got 3 part-time story time providers to help us take those specialized story times into every pre-K and every kindergarten classroom in Watauga County. And we did that for 3 years. And it was one of those situations where I think I had done the training, the supercharged storytime training, and they had, you know, kind of explained how to incorporate alphabetic knowledge and phonemic awareness into your story times. And so we were doing that at the public library, but we were also felt like, oh, you know what, we're kind of preaching to the choir. The families that come to the library are the ones who are already interested in those things anyway. So how do you take this well-crafted story time and get it out to the people and the families who need it? And so we thought, you know what, the kids in kindergarten and pre-K, they're kind of our captive audience. And we were able to write this grant that enabled us to take the story times there. And I remember when the first time I asked the children in one of the classrooms how many of them had been to the Watauga County Public Library, and only half of the children raised their hands. So that's when we went to the director and said, hey, can we tweak our grant just a little bit to bring every kindergarten class and we couldn't bring the pre-K, we could only bring the kindergarten classes to the library on a field trip. And I think that was probably a highlight of our grant, because they, you know, you talk about the public library and you talk about it being like a sister to their school library, but they have no concept of what that is. So for them to be here, and we took them on a little tour, we showed them how to use the self-checkout, and then we walked them to the outside of the building and they returned the books in the book return, and then they got to participate in a story time here while they were here. Many of them went home and begged their caregivers to bring them back to the public library. And some of them their parents were teachers in the schools who hadn't ever come and gotten a library card. Some of them, they begged and pleaded, you know, for a grandparent to bring them back. And I remember specifically, this was such a sweet little story, because we had taught them how to use the self-checkout. We said, there may be grownups in your life that don't know how to do this, so you can teach them when you bring them. And one little boy brought his grandmother in specifically to get a library card and show her how to use the self-checkout. So that was pretty awesome. But the grant, so because we were doing a story time for every letter of the alphabet, when COVID hit, we wanted to finish up supporting the classrooms that we were working with, and that was our final year of the grant, and we didn't want to just stop. So we started creating videos, and we put them on our YouTube channel, the Appalachian Regional Library YouTube channel, and realized that that was a great way to kind of keep the ability to share that information ongoing, kind of evergreen. And so when the next school year started, even though the grant wasn't happening, and we were still in the midst of COVID and partially or fully online schools, I sent the link out, you know, to every kindergarten teacher and every pre-K teacher and said, here is, you know, the way the library wants to support you in your efforts to teach children to read. So now we've got those videos online as well, and, you know, continue to put them out on our Facebook page, or continue at, you know, at the beginning of each school year to share them. And we can share them, you know, like I said, we were 1 county and 3-county system. We can share those now with the teachers in the other counties, even though we can't individually go to the schools anymore. So, so that was a huge thing. And then also, you know, things just kept, I don't know what the right word is, but kept kind of springboarding off of the grant. So we were asked to come up with a way that we could support families during the summertime. Again, this was pre-COVID. So here we were, we'd been going into the classrooms all year long. We had brought the children to the library on a field trip. And then IMLS and LSTA people said, can you come up with a component to the grant that would continue the ability to support families during the summertime? And that's when we came up with these ideas for backpacks. So we created a backpack for each letter of the alphabet, and we put, you know, things that would help with alphabet recognition. So we've got little alphabots and magnetic things. What do you call it? A sewing card. We have a flannel board in here where they can differentiate between 2 letters of the alphabet and separate out the things that start with that letter. There's a puzzle in here. And then we also always included a tip sheet that the library made to help parents or caregivers know of songs or games they could do to kind of extend that learning process. And that went over really well. And of course, then every book in the backpack just has a word in it that starts with the focus letter. So these were more books that parents would read to, or caregivers would read to their children. And then we asked the kindergarten teachers, after working with them for a year, that we were going to create a second set of backpacks. What was the feedback on how we should do it differently? And the kindergarten teachers said that they would like the backpacks to have a STEM focus and to have books that were more on the children's reading level. So that's what we attempted to do. So when we still tried to come up with, we put these Magnadoodle boards in here, and then this is the letter B backpack where they could practice writing, because we always want to have that letter recognition be a part of the process. But so this is a letter B backpack. We tried to put books in here that, so how big is a blue whale, you know, truly a decodable book, but more words on the page. But then we also included, you know, like the bird guidebook, and then we put binoculars in the backpack so that they could look birds through their binoculars. We also had like a bug, books about bugs, a bug alphabet, and then a bug identification thing. And then included another tip sheet, but we wanted it to be different. So we included RAN boards so that they could rapid automatic naming of letters. So we really appreciated having the kindergarten teachers' feedback of how to create something different. Then this is separate from, I know I get excited. I should probably take a breath.
This is amazing. Keep going. Great information.
Another grant that some of the reading teachers helped the head of our department, our youth services department, was to get the guided readers that a lot of the reading specialists use in the schools. So with that grant, we were able to create these boxes of little readers. And so this box is all the level of A, and put in these plastic bags 10 of those guided reading books. And then there's at least 10 of the packages in each fabric box with those kind of guided readers. And, you know, I feel like that's been a huge, you know, because we worked with the schools on both of these items to create something that the teachers themselves felt they could now say to the parents, hey, we'd like for your child to work on level D guided reading books. Now they can come to the library and it's super easy for them to find where those books are. We also went ahead and purchased, so that's the All About Reading curriculum. You know, all in a bag, everything a parent would need. And, you know, obviously they probably aren't going to renew this for an entire year, but at least it gives a parent you know, like a place where they could jump in and be supportive where their child is struggling, and or they can work with it and decide whether or not they want to purchase it for themselves if they want to help their children with reading. And then I just actually wrote to the publishers of this book, and I love the title, The Ordinary Parent's Guide to Teaching Reading. And in the book, the author says something like, if you can read, you can teach someone to read.
Mhm.
And give a little caveat. They say, you know, if there is no true learning disability, and if the child hasn't experienced trauma, that like 90% of children, you know, should be able to read if you give the instructor the method to do it. And I mean, this is a $30 book that when I emailed the publisher and just said, I'd like to create like 5 videos telling people what this is, what's inside it, and just maybe walking them through a lesson so that they have that as a resource, and to encourage libraries to have that kind of a resource available for any parent who comes in and asks, how can I support my child who's struggling to read?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing so much. I mean, there's so much effort, and to get back to your partnership with the school, that is so incredible and wonderful, because I mean, the library should be this magical place where, you know, kids are learning at school, but then they go to the library and they could, whatever, anything in the world they're interested in, there's a book in, and that's why we want to help them. We want to help them learn to read. And, you know, a lot of what you're saying too parallels, you know, to some degree to the path that we go down with to try to help the community and work through the libraries also to make it easier for parents to help more kids. And we also feel like with our reading specialist, especially, you know, Faith Burkowski is really on a mission to help parents be able to help their own children learn to read. So we're all thinking alike there, and she's written some little booklets, and you know, we have some videos too. I can, you know, at some point I'll post some of our videos about, you know, fundamental skills. But the fact is, to get back to your, you know, specific library, you know, you really are, you know, on fire with finding solutions to be able to help these kids get excited about reading, and also start to, you know, put the sounds together, you know, with the letters, that you have, you know, an awareness that it, you know, is about the sound and the letter, not just memorizing the letter and then starting to learn sounds randomly. So it is exciting, all of these initiatives that you're doing. So I can, you know, I can see why you, you know, I could sense your enthusiasm, you know, as you were talking, and it's wonderful. And you've seen our little bundles. We love knapsacks too, and we're constantly asking sometimes the librarians, oh, do you still like the knapsacks, or would you give them out for summer reading, or what would you know, just like you, like what resources should we put in that would make it easier for parents, or you know, or is it something that you're going to catalog in a kit, or give to, you know, give to family? So you're doing so much. And it's funny, as you were talking, we work with Itchy's Alphabet, which is, it's one of the ways we work with Itchy's is for their, for the handwriting program and the mnemonic alphabet. I have the little A here, for it, and it's a sound, you know, sounds focused, and but it's all those clever ways and stories and story time around sounds and letters is just brilliant. And going out to the community, because they weren't coming in, and then bringing the kindergartners in. So this is all, it's just great stuff. And so what would you say then are your biggest needs you see from families of early and struggling readers? Like, what do you see that you wish you could maybe address if you had to triage?
Well, let me first say, going back to the other ways to help families, I did want to say that I was doing the grant, you know, typically I would go to a library conference, you know, once a year for professional development, but I asked if that particular year I could go to the reading conference in our state. And I did, and I heard Wiley Blevins speak.
Yes.
And that was where I learned, that was the first time that, because I was looking at the guided readers and finding that I personally was frustrated because when I learned to teach my own children to read, the curriculum came with a set of readers, and the readers were, you know, in step with what the kids were learning. You know, as you would teach them a letter, then they would have the opportunity to practice it. And I just, I think I just assumed that must be the way all little, you know, like easy readers and things like that were designed. Then when I was getting my master's, that was one of the things I started looking for, was how to be more mindful of decodable books, and realized, oh, the easy readers are not actually decodable. And that was a frustration. And to see that a level 1 in one publishing house was very different from a level 1 in another, from another publisher. And so when Wiley Blevins actually made the comment that even in these guided readers that, I can't remember exactly the percentage, I just remember being shocked. Say, maybe he said only 50% of the words were decodable. I thought, how frustrating for a child. So I guess that would be a need, is exactly what you're doing. Trying, and I think that's why I'm so excited about the whole discussion of the decodable books, is just trying to find them and then create an area in the library where they're easy for parents to find them. And an example, there was a family that was in the library, and a mom was trying to get the child to pick a book, and he wouldn't pick one. And she said, do you have any suggestions? And I made several suggestions that I knew would be super easy, that he would have a lot of success with. But it occurred to me to maybe get the All About Reading Level 1 curriculum and show it to her. And I think what the child was excited about was when I pulled the reader out, it looked like a real book. It looked like a chapter book. Yet when you opened it, there was only going to be about 3 words on a page. But he was holding a hardback book that looked like a chapter book. And she, you know, she took it. I can't say she was like, oh, I'm so excited. But when she came back to the library, she sought me out and said, thank you so much for showing me that. She said, I ran to do an errand at Walmart and I left the kids in the car. And when I came back out to the car, he was still reading that book. And I felt like he was still reading it because he could, because he was having success. And so I would say that's a need. Books that look like books and are decodable.
Yeah, I mean, it is so surprising that people like us, like with backgrounds, you know, in English language resource type areas, that you just don't hear about these books. And it's funny because a few weeks ago, I was also looking at one of the early guided books that or was a level reader that one of the last ones I bought for my daughter before I was really familiar with the science of reading or any of the real strategies to really help early and striving readers. And I mean, it was more of it was a predictable text, and I was struggling because she was getting older and still, you know, her reading skills were still developing. And, you know, but I look at the book and I always say, well, as babyish as it was, there were words I always think like balloon. And I was like, oh, once, you know, she learned in a systematic, explicit approach, she started getting it and practicing it. And, you know, once you realize how these books work and how they connect to what kids learn and the approach they take, it's like you think, how did I not always know about this? And I even get harder on myself being in educational publishing, and everything we do, there's metadata, the way we connect text to everything. And it never crossed my mind that learning to read, that there should be that connection, and that with guided readers, they have, you know, that they have their own system, and it's not necessarily based on that same science and logic. And there is a place, you know, certainly for everything, but these decodable books really do give the kids the confidence. And, you know, I've also seen it and been startled, and sometimes, you know, just how how joyful it is for these kids when they're actually succeeding. And it's just it's tool. It's a piece of the puzzle. So that's why we get so excited with libraries, because most of us in the parent world, especially if we had kids that did strive, we spent a lot of time in the libraries, talking to librarians or even learning about these books and saying, do you carry them, and getting, often blank stares. And, there's sometimes I used to say that, is it that these books aren't as sexy and compared to the beautiful literature? But then I think, I'm not so sure, because some of the best decodables really aren't, they're about the process and the word, but there are some really nice ones out too. And moving towards making them easier for librarians is, we're still early in the curve, but I do think that part that what you're moving towards and the relationships that you've forged with the community and school are pretty extraordinary. And in addition to wanting to come visit beautiful Boone, North Carolina, and go biking and hiking and see the mountains, you've got an incredible library. And, I'm really thankful that you've shared this information, and I look forward to our connection and working together to bring more resources and programming and in ways to help more families. Really, it's learn to read, and then the bonus is loving reading.
Right. And I think I feel like this, I don't know if this would fall under needs or, just comments in general, but I did fill out a questionnaire for an MLIS program, and they were just asking, that you're 2 years out from getting your master's, what kind of feedback would you give for the program? And that was my feedback, was there should be at least one, if not one mandatory course, at least one mandatory assignment, that all librarians be aware of something like this, that they could, honestly, maybe they should have to tutor a child, as part of their MLIS program. Why not, for one semester, tutor a child in reading, so that you've got just a little bit of experience, because that's what, like you just said it starts with that learning to read and then the joy. So if they can't read, they can't enjoy this whole world that's available to them through their library.
Yeah, definitely. That's why it's far behind me, but I've got a poster, and it's, it's everything with us. Our slogan is all roads lead to the library, road to code leads to the library. And there's this big treasure chest at the end. Once you have language comprehension and you learn to decode just the treasures of the library, and really the world open up. So definitely.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate the work that you all are doing to connect libraries who are trying to do this, and to learn from each other. And I'm excited to hear from other librarians and library systems that are working with you to create these decodable collections. We went ahead and applied for a grant that we won't know if we get until December. And you were very helpful in us being able to a list of the kind of books we felt like we were looking for, but I know that it's going to be so much more meaningful once I get to hear what other libraries have done successfully.
Definitely. So yeah, I'll look forward to continuing our discussions, and this was helpful. So I'm gonna end the recording now. Take care, everybody.